Rebecca and Mike. You've kissed 1,000 times before, maybe more, but this time is different because this is your very first kiss as husband and wife. And so without further ado, it is my honor to declare you husband and wife. You may kiss.
That's the moment, right? That's what we're trying to get to as officiants. I love that moment so much. What's up, everybody? My name is Jeff. That was me officiating that wedding in that video, and I'm so glad that you're joining me here because I'm gonna walk you through the 9 steps that I use to write every ceremony. Now, a bit of a disclaimer right off the top, that if you're looking for one of those, I've seen this ceremony 1,000 times before type script, you are not going to find it here. So hopefully I can save you some time right off the hop. I really feel like the worst service that we can do is have guests sitting there looking at their watch saying, hey, when's this guy gonna stop talking so I can go grab a drink, and when's cocktail hour? I think that ceremonies deserve way more personalization and way more time and effort and getting to know the couple to be able to deliver their story in a way that is memorable and engaging. I want people laughing, I want people crying and following along with every word. You might be wondering, how do I know if I'm gonna hit that moment? How do I get there? And that's a great question. That really is the biggest question. And for me, what I'm trying to do is start with the end in mind. That's a bit of a covey for you, but I want to show you a picture here. Take a look at this photo right here. Now, that's the exact moment that I'm trying to get. I'm trying to create this space for couples to get married where they're really in that moment together and enjoying. And so if that's what I'm trying to create, I need to figure out what are the stories that need to be told? What is the tone of the ceremony? What is the language? What is the vibe that needs to be put and wrapped together in this ceremony to be able to achieve that? Let me show you a couple more photos here real quick. Here's another one here too. One more for you. I love these. These are so much fun. And so we're gonna walk through an entire ceremony together, that one that I just showed you the beginning of, and I'm gonna break down each section for you, each one of those 9 sections, and show you what they look like in real time during an actual ceremony. I'm gonna give you some tips during the video as well and some photo ops. One quick thought on those photo ops, if you're just getting started and maybe you've only done a couple ceremonies, I might not be too worried about these. But if you've done maybe a lot more ceremonies, you've got a bunch under your belt, these are gonna be some good opportunities for you to capture some really great photos that you're gonna then be able to use in your marketing, Instagram, Facebook, and all that good stuff. So if you're ready to get started, let's do it.
All right, so I'm just gonna drag myself onto this video here, and let's go ahead and get started and walk through those 9 steps together as we walk through this unedited full ceremony video that I have here. And I'm gonna talk you through each one, and I'm also going to give you some tips and photo ops throughout. Some of the tips that I'm going to give are for you. Some are tips that I like to pass along to the couple. The photo ops are more for, not only for the ceremony photos, we want to make sure those are really great for the couple, but even for yourself, if this is something that you're thinking of doing later on, you're going to want a couple photos of yourself in action, and I think that's really important. So I'm going to kind of point out what moments I like to make sure that I grab a good photo. So let's go ahead and get started here. I'm going to go ahead and play this. And let's get started. You can see here there's some formal seating going on. Some ceremonies will have this, some don't. I find it's less common, but Mike, the groom here, is gonna go ahead and seat the bride's mom. He's gonna give her a nice hug, and it's really sweet. I think it's a really nice thing to do. She's gonna go ahead and grab a seat, and you can see myself and the gentleman are hanging out at the back, and we're gonna walk into the front together. And I'm gonna go ahead and pause it right here. Now, this can be a really great photo, not only for yourself, but also for yourself and the groom. I think that's really nice. You can see the guests have turned and are facing us, and so I'm always cognizant of that, and I always want to have a big smile too, right? We're having fun. This is the greatest job in the world that we get to do, and I want people to know that, and so I'm smiling as well as I'm coming in, doing up my jacket because it's obviously going to be very formal up there. And let's go ahead and let this run. I'll give you a couple tips that I pass along to the groomsmen as well. One of the things that I always get asked is spacing, so I'm going to say a few feet apart as they come in, just walking in casually, normal. We're going to do up that top button of those jackets. If they've got 2 buttons, that bottom button does not get done up. You can see Mike does his up right there. Now, the very first thing that I do, so step number 1, this first section of a ceremony, what I like to do is to make an announcement to the guests. Now, this might be something that's totally out of your comfort zone, so see this as a very optional first step in the ceremony. I've had really great success at it. because it kind of fits naturally with my personality. I'm naturally fairly outgoing. I like to be in front of a mic. I like to get people excited and engaged. So this actually lends itself well. If this seems like it's something that might be a stretch for you, if you're not really excited about it, you do not need to do this, but I'm going to show you what it is and also tell you why I do it. So I'm actually going to put the volume on here as we get started for this one.
Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Jeff. I have the great honor of officiating today. I'm very excited. I hope you are too. Before we get started though, I do have a quick question for you. This one does involve some guest participation.
And so what I'm doing here is I'm sharing an announcement with the guests for two reasons. One of them is it's a bit of a cue that the ceremony is going to get started, and so I've got their attention here. And two, it's to set the vibe. You can see they're kind of nodding along. What I'm trying to do is get people excited, get them engaged. I mean, we've probably all been to some boring ceremonies. Odds are these guests have as well, and I want them to know right off the hop, look, they're clapping. Like, this is not going to be like a ceremony you've been to before. We're going to have some fun up here. We're going to have some laughs. I want you to feel free to clap and cheer if that's what you are feeling. I want you to feel free to go ahead and cry if you want to cry. And let's laugh together and let's really enjoy this moment. So this is a really important thing that I like to do at the beginning of the ceremony, and I do find that it lands really, really well. Number two, so the second part of a ceremony, as I'm piecing it together, is the processional. You can see the bridesmaids are going to make their way in, and I'm going to go ahead and pause this again for a couple reasons here. One of the tips that I like to give the bridesmaids is how to hold the flowers. And so what's most natural? Belly button. Always hold it at the belly button. Looks really good. In terms of spacing, I always tell them, let's go ahead and make it so that there's only one person in the aisle at a time for the photo, because this is actually a very beautiful photo. There's nobody in behind there. They're probably going to want a copy of that one, and so it's a nice tip to actually remind them of that. And the third thing that I always recommend to them, and I'm going to go ahead and let this run as I chat about this next one here, is I always tell them to smile. And so I'm actually up at the front right now and I'm smiling really big to kind of remind her, hey, smile, smile, because it can be a little bit stressful for them. This is a big moment for them walking in, and they're thinking, don't trip, don't fall, don't do something crazy. Perfect. So we can see that Becca is now making her way in with her dad. And you know what, in that announcement that I made, I actually said, hey everyone, put away those phones, feel free to just be present. There's always someone with a horrible case on their phone like this woman right here. You can't really do anything about that. And so if that happens, you just roll with it, and that's totally okay. This is an important moment that I like to get a little bit micromanage on the processional, because I think it's a really special moment right here. And I always recommend for whoever's standing up with me, if it's the groom, to go ahead and make his way and meet the bride and her dad at that front row of chairs. So we're going to see that here. Mike's going to go ahead and meet them instead of just like hanging out up at the front like this. Gives dad a hug. Dad's going to give his daughter a kiss and a hug, and it's really sweet. And then Mike's going to reach out and grab Becca's hand, and they're going to actually come up to the front together, which is way nicer than him just hanging out up there alone. Becca's going to pass off those flowers to her maid of honor. They're going to fix her dress, ask the guests to be seated. Very awkward if you forget that, and they stay standing the entire time. We want to make sure that that's not the case. Get yourself centered up there as well for photos. Really, really beautiful. We want to make sure that we do that. Now, off mic there, I'm kind of making a few comments to the couple and just having some fun with them, getting them loose, getting them ready. So once I've got them set up here, you can see I love to have them holding hands, facing each other. We're centered at that mantle in the front of the fireplace. Again, I find that's the most natural position for a couple to kind of be standing, and it looks really nice in photos as well. So the third section of a ceremony, and this is really the bulk of the ceremony, I'm going to call this section the love story part, but it's kind of got three sections to it. The first section is talking about marriage, and basically just framing the ceremony around what are we doing here? Why is this important? Why is it important to you? Why are we making this commitment today? And helping them understand that, hey, a lot of things in life are going to change over the course of time. You know, maybe your jobs are going to change. Maybe you're going to move and your living situation is going to change, or your looks are for sure going to change. But what can't change is the commitment that you're making today. Your commitment has to be to your marriage, and we're committing to this thing. So regardless of what happens in life, regardless of the changes that take place, this moment, what we're creating today, this marriage, you must be committed to this for the rest of your lives. And so that's a theme that I like to talk about. I like to keep it light and have some fun with the couple too. You can kind of see they're laughing there. because I do find that it keeps them relaxed, right? And that's kind of my goal, is to help them feel relaxed, feel present in the moment, but also just really be kind of locked in on each other there as well. The second section of this love story part is I like to take them for a walk down memory lane. And these stories are stories that they've shared with me, and so I've asked them a lot of questions to get these stories. But these stories are unique to them and unique to their story and uniquely shared by them. So I want to share those with their guests and with them as well, to kind of remind them, like, hey, you guys have been through a lot together. Remember this stuff. This stuff is great. And so I'm actually going to let it play right here for us. And I'm actually going to put the volume on here as well.
It's been moments. I want you to think back. Mike, remember the moment you saw Becca at World Gym for the first time? The thought that crossed your mind? I think it was something like, wow, she's beautiful. Followed by, is she taller than me?
And in these moments here, you can see that I'm sharing. It also makes for a really great shared moment with the couple. They're going to laugh. I love laughing, and so naturally I'm always smiling and laughing up there. I want their guests to know, hey, this guy's having a great time up there. And I want the couple to know that too. And so in my demeanor and with the smiles on my face, they're, one, really genuine because I actually really love getting to do this. And two, it's a good cue for everybody to kind of help them feel present in that moment. And so I smile really often as well for photos, because I know in advance these are going to be some funny stories, which means the couple's going to laugh, their wedding party's probably going to laugh. I want to laugh as well because it's a really beautiful photo. And I've shown you a few of those photos that these moments create, so I'm kind of always cognizant of those moments. Now, there's a section that they actually put in here coming up next. And I'm going to talk about it even though I typically don't recommend it. And that's actually having a reading in your ceremony. So while she's actually doing the reading, I'm going to just chat briefly about it. The reason I normally don't recommend it to couples or just automatically put it in there is for a handful of reasons. I want everything in the ceremony to be meaningful, and I want it to have purpose. And I find a lot of times couples put a reading in their ceremony because they think they have to have a reading, not because they actually want one. So if there's something that's particularly meaningful to them or has been impactful, whether it's a book, song, movie, any type of quote, let's put it in there. But if not, let's skip that part. And a tip for you to pass along to the couples, when they're selecting someone to share a reading, they're going to want to make sure that they, one, are going to feel comfortable up there speaking behind a mic. A lot of people, this is their nightmare. But they need to keep in mind that whoever they ask is going to say yes, because they, if the bride and groom ask them to share a reading, of course they'll say yes, but they might be dreading that moment. And two, you want to make sure the person who's going to share a reading is well spoken. I know, again, that seems really obvious, but I can assure you I've been a part of a lot of weddings where this is not the case, and sometimes this person who's actually sharing a reading breaks down crying and is unable to complete the reading because they are really just dreading it. And so I've had to take the mic, take the iPad back, and just share it for them. Sometimes I'll put my arm around them, depending on who the person is, and we'll share it together. And it's a really beautiful moment. But I don't think that's necessarily how they want to remember that ceremony, the person doing that reading. So that's a couple tips for you. Again, I normally don't have readings in ceremonies unless a couple requests it and says, this is meaningful to us, we would love to have this. That's what they've actually done in this part here. So it's great for them, and this works really, really well. For a typical ceremony, I won't just tell a couple, let's add a reading in there. The third section in here is actually their love story. So we've gone through framing the marriage, framing what we're actually doing here. We've gone for a walk down memory lane. The next part of this love story part is actually just sharing their story with their guests. And I'm going to go ahead and play the volume on this one.
Thank you, Jen. That was perfect.
I think what I'll mention actually before I go too far here is that the stories that I share in both the walk down memory lane and the love story section here, they're from the couple. So they're from spending time with the couple and getting to know them and getting to know what's important to them. And the story part isn't just a chronological history of their relationship, because most people already know that. Most people maybe know they met in this year, they dated for this long, they went on this trip, they bought this house, they got a dog. These are all great and wonderful things. But people want to know they want a little bit more to these stories. And so I like to share some unique stories, especially if they're going to be funny. I like to kind of start light and fun and work my way into something a little bit more serious. You'll see what I mean right here. I'm going to go ahead and play this first section of the story.
Family and friends, can we agree that a day like today doesn't just happen? Let me share just a bit of their love story with you now, because it's awesome, and honestly, without it, we might not be standing up here. You see, Becca and Mike's love story began in 2012. Becca was working at World Gym, and Mike was modeling. Or is it the other way around? Honestly, I don't know. You're both so darn good looking. Let me get the facts straight here. Becca was modeling. Mike was at World Gym as a trainer.
And so this is a couple minute section at least of their ceremony. And again, I like to have some fun with it. I like to tell some light stories here. I want them laughing. I want them feeling comfortable. I want their guests to be engaged and laughing. Because I also find that love stories are typically pretty funny. Like they've got some unique aspects to it that are really unique to their relationship. So let's tell those stories. Let's have some fun. And I keep the stories general enough that everybody can kind of be a part of it. Once stories start to get too specific or too inside joke type, they stop hitting home. They stop landing with the guests. And so again, as long as these stories are consistent with their personalities and consistent with what they know about the couple, it advances the story and it makes a really, really wonderful, wonderful moment. So let's do a quick recap here. So we've had 3 sections so far. The first one was that optional announcement that I like to do. I call it a vibe setting announcement. Again, not something you have to do. I just find that it hits home and it's a really nice way to start a ceremony and create a good feel with the guests. The second thing is a processional, and more often than not, you're going to have this processional in an elopement or maybe a smaller wedding. You may not. In the third section of the ceremony, that's where the bulk of it comes in, right? That's that framing of marriage. So talking a bit about what we're actually doing here, I think that's important to do that. That second section in there is taking them down memory lane, reliving some of those fun memories that they've had together that are shared exclusively by the couple. And that third part of it is actually sharing their love story. So what events kind of led them to this moment? And more often than not, those stories are funny. I do like to ask the couple questions like, tell me a few things that you love about each other. Tell me what drives you nuts. Tell me about the time you laughed the hardest. Tell me something embarrassing about the other. And these, once I get these answers, it normally helps me just write a story that I think is pretty funny and pretty engaging. And also not only just fun for them, but fun for their guests to be a part of. Now, the fourth section, I'm going to go ahead and fast forward just a little bit here. The fourth section is, let's see here. The fourth section of writing a ceremony is actually on the couple, and it's the vows. And I think it always looks nicest when they've got them written down, so you can see Mike's going to go ahead and share it with Becca. I'm going to hold the microphone for him, kind of frees up his hands to be able to hold her hand. I always tell him, hey, take your time through it. If you stumble over a word, if you need a break, if you need a little bit of a moment to catch your breath, that's totally cool. Just take it. And there is a bit of a template to write these because I do find a lot of couples are very stressed by it, but I highly encourage them all to do it. And some of that template I'm going to talk about in more depth in another video, but it's really a couple sentences at the beginning just talking about, I can't believe we're here. We're all together. This is crazy. We've been dreaming about this thing, planning this thing forever, and it's so cool that we're finally here. Followed by, 6 or 7 promises. I promise this. I promise that. I think there's some really beautiful ways to write vows, and I try my hardest not to give too rigid criteria to a couple because I'm always surprised by how well people write these and how beautiful they are. So I kind of let them be free to just write it however they'd like and however they want to express it. I do find that written is nicest. I highly discourage couples to try and memorize them. It's a very difficult thing to do. And I do feel like the entire ceremony, my job is actually to get us to this moment right here. There's nothing I can say that's going to be more important than what they have to share with each other. And so I try and build the momentum to get to this moment where they share their vows and promises with each other. They're going to keep their marriage strong and keep them committed to each other for the rest of their lives. And this is the best moment, in my opinion, of the entire ceremony. I love actually just watching this. Mike is just, he loves Becca so much, and he's just, it's such a cool cool moment. And it's actually very difficult not to be emotional even as they're sharing vows. And I find a lot of times I'm actually either crying or on the verge of tears in vows, and that's totally cool too. It's just such a special and heavy moment in the ceremony. Now, after a couple has shared their vows, we're going to go ahead and do a ring exchange. Again, you'll typically have a ring exchange. I normally recommend you don't actually bring a box up if it's the best man that has the rings. I normally tell them just put the rings in your pocket. It's a little bit awkward in photos to have a big box bulging out of your jacket, but he opted to carry it up. That's totally fine. Now, I like to talk about the significance of why we're actually exchanging rings. Why do this? What's the point of it? And there is a reason that I think is really important, and it's not just because tradition tells us we have to do this. A quick tip for the couple as well. The rings hardly ever actually go on all the way. In this case, I think they might actually go on, but a lot of times they just hit the knuckle, and it's, stress causes your hands to swell. It gets a little bit tricky. And I just tell couples, if it hits the knuckle and won't go on, just leave it and put your own hand down. It's easy to push it on. Nobody even notices. We've exchanged some rings. So the 6th section is signing the marriage license. So number 5 was exchanging the rings. Number 6, signing the marriage license. And there's a little bit of a way to kind of do this as well. I mean, sometimes there'll be a seated table. Sometimes it's a high top where they'll be standing the whole time. More often than not, there's just one chair. One person will stay seated. I like to have her bouquet put down on there for photos. Looks really pretty. I'd also recommend just getting in and out of these photos. Don't linger in those. This is a really pretty and beautiful photo for them to share. I just kind of point, jump out of the photo, point, jump out of the photo. It definitely looks much, much nicer. And so they've asked their best man and maid of honor to sign as well. Depending on the state, province, country that you're in, there's different criteria for people who are signing. I've had it where it's the grandparents signing or the parents, or it can be really special asking somebody like that to sign, but I'll say more often than not, it is the best man and maid of honor that traditionally sign it, and that's great as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and fast forward just a little bit here. Because I'm off mic here, I do like to kind of chat and make some jokes with them, keep things light here, keep it fun. And let's see here. So let's get ourselves back up to the front here. One of the most important things that I like to do here is I actually like to reset the couple, because I want us to be back in the center, because the biggest photos are coming up here. And so I want us to be dead center, kind of in the right spot. I like to chat with them again, just kind of off mic, keep it loose, keep things fun, and get a good laugh there. And this next section, so this is section 7. I'm going to do a quick pause on here just to mention it. It's just a quick announcement to their guests. And the reason I do an announcement to the guests is just to let them know what is the next thing that's going to take place. There's nothing worse than a ceremony ends, the bridal party leaves, the bride and groom leave, and the guests are just kind of like, okay, like, what are we doing now? Is there cocktail hour? Is there appetizers? Are we going somewhere else? I like to tell them, hey, here's the very next thing that you're going to do. And 99% of the time it is, you're going to head to cocktail hour and enjoy some hors d'oeuvres at this place or in this spot, or there's a group photo. It's that kind of announcement. It's not an announcement of smoking out here and housekeeping stuff that the MC is going to do later on. That is not the stuff I'm going to touch on here. It's just, hey, family and friends, here's what you're going to want to know that's taking place next.
The best part, I was asking to share just a few quick announcements with you. I promise you will not want to miss these.
And so that's basically how I lead into it, and it's just a pretty quick section here. Section number 8. I'm going to go ahead and put the volume on here, because section number 8 is the declaration of marriage, the kiss, and the presentation. So actually I'm going to pause it real quick here. So we've just done announcements as number 7, declaration, kiss, presentation as number 8. I kind of bunched them all together here because it's actually like a 20-second section altogether. So it's not necessary to separate these ones. A couple quick things to note about that kiss, and you've seen this video at the beginning of the ceremony. At the beginning of this video, I already played this moment. One of the things you're going to want to remember, let's go ahead actually and...
You've kissed 1,000 times before, maybe more, but this time is different because this is your very first kiss as husband and wife. And so without further ado, it is my honor to declare you husband and wife. You may kiss.
So again, one of the best moments of the ceremony here. And we try our best to tell people or encourage people at the beginning of the ceremony to put away their phones. I can see at least 3 phones in this photo here, which means that the photographer who's taking the photo this way is also going to get those. Again, you can't really do anything about that. But this kiss, you can see one of the things that I did there that for some reason I don't see a lot of is get out of that photo. There is no need for us to be the creeper in the background watching this thing. Jump out of there, because a lot of photographers are going to take this nice tight shot of them. They're going to take kind of a mid shot and a wide shot. You don't want to be in any of those. And this moment is going to be either one of those like, let's blow this thing up and put it on the wall because it's so beautiful, or it's going to be one of those, this is a weird photo, let's get rid of this thing and never show anybody. And so I highly encourage couples to actually practice their kiss once before. And normally you don't have to, twist any arms or anything to get them to do this, but I always say, hey, practice this thing once. You don't want that one weird kiss to be in front of everybody, and you don't want it to be captured and immortalized in a photo on your wedding day. Practice a couple times. You'll kind of get the feel for, okay, I'm standing facing this person. We're holding hands. How are we going to kiss? And then it makes for a beautiful moment just like this. And then I'm going to go ahead and play this because you'll hear the presentation as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand. It is my honor to present to you for the very first time as husband and wife, Michael and Rebecca.
So a quick pause here because the last section here is the recessional, and this is actually the start of the recessional, right? It's the couple making their way out of the venue or out of the space. Guests are standing, clapping, cheering. And again, just like the processional with the bridesmaids coming in, where I only like to have one bridesmaid in the aisle at a time, it's the same here. I want this photo to be the couple walking down. It's normally a really candid, really raw moment, and it makes for some really cool photos. I don't want the best man, maid of honor, or whoever it is walking in the aisle and kind of being in the background of it. So you will actually see me cue them once they've made their way out. And sometimes photographers will stop the couple at the end, so I'm always kind of keeping an eye on what the photographer is doing here. And let me go ahead and play that, and I'll show you what that. I'm just going to duck the volume out here. So you can see the photographer said, hey, stop, let's do a quick photo right here. And then I cued the best man and the maid of honor to go ahead and come out. And so that's it. That is an entire ceremony, and I really hope that this has been helpful for you to kind of walk through it with me. There are a ton of different ways to write ceremonies. This has been my style, and this has worked really well for me. I'd encourage you to find your own style. You're welcome to copy everything that's in here and use it for yourself. You can pick and choose what you like, or you can just discard everything and say, I actually just don't agree with any of it, and that's cool too. That's the beauty of getting to do ceremonies is, at least in the province that I'm in, there's a handful of legal things that I must do. Outside of that, we're free to really make this thing as special and as personal for the couple as possible and put our own spin on it. So I'd encourage you to figure out what that looks like for you, and how does that match your personality, and how do you serve the couples best? Like, how do you deliver something amazing for them? So if you have any questions at all, I would love to see them in the comments. If you're unsure about any sections in here, feel free to put something down there. That's great. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can on it. And if there's anything you're curious about that you'd like to see a different video about, I'm happy to do that as well. Again, I'm very lucky that I end up with a lot of footage from these ceremonies, and so I'm able to do a video just like this to help you out. Please go ahead, and also if you've got some comments on how you've done something differently, if you've officiated weddings and said, hey, I've actually done it this way, I would love to know that too, because I'm not going to say that I've got everything figured out. This is a style that's worked for me. I would love to hear how you're doing things, so go ahead and put that in the comments there as well. Good luck as you're writing these things, and remember, just serve these couples and have a great time, because this really is one of the greatest jobs in the world.